morning, everybody. Lee Brower here, and welcome to this week's edition of Meaningful Monday. I am grateful to be here, and I am glad to be here. This week's word is persistence. Persistence means the firm continuance in a course of action, in spite of difficulty or opposition. Can I tell you a story? This last weekend, we had our 9th annual Wacky Charitable Softball Tournament, and I have to just tell you that I am bursting in gratitude. Gratitude for the fact that we've been able to have it for 9 years through some bumps and crisis, and that's where I want to talk to you about persistence. But I also want to thank all of those that are involved in it. You know, I have an amazing team at Empowered Wealth who they and some of their family members come out and have been participants in all 9 of these events. I want to thank members of our softball community and others that have bring their families out to volunteer and make it and work countless hours to make sure that this is a success. And most of all, Lori. What she does and the hard work that she puts in to make this happen, I can't even describe it to you. And but let me give you a little history on it. So Lori's son Nick, my bonus son, who I have known his entire life, contracted cancer in April of 2007. In April of 2008, he was declared cancer-free. Now that's after a year of numerous radiation, chemo, hospitalization, surgery, etc. And we considered it a miracle. So that was in April of 2008. In the summer of 2008, he went on his very first ascents challenge, what we call challenge outdoor event with other young adults living with cancer. And it was a kayaking event. He came home from that fully charged, and it was life-changing. He said, "Mom, we've got to do something to give back." Well, Lori's a softball mom, and that's the only thing that she knew. And so we concluded that maybe what we should do is a softball tournament. So we had our very first softball tournament. We had 16 teams, and we raised a little bit of money, a little bit of awareness. We did it on the county fairgrounds. That has now evolved since 2008 to the present time to where we have over 40 teams. We turned down teams at 12 different fields. And so let me tell you what happened in between and why the word persistence is important to me and means so much to me. So in 2008, we had our very first one, and Nick wanted to be involved in that. So he said, I don't believe in anything. He says, there's no such thing as losers. He believed in winners, and he believed in learners. And he said, if you're a learner, then you'll never be a loser. And so we decided that one of the things that happen at softball games, if you win the tournament, they a lot of times will just give you a t-shirt. Well, we decided that every girl is going to get a t-shirt. So think about it now. With 40 teams, we're giving out over 500 t-shirts every year to these girls, and there's not a sponsor on any one of the t-shirts. It's all about them, and it's all about the event. And we bring them together when they're eliminated from the tournament. All of them come together. We tell them thank you, and it was Nick that was telling them thank you. And those girls adored him. And so he would come in and tell them thank you, talk about where the money was going. All the money goes directly to research or to outdoor activities for young adults living with cancer, 100%. And he would share the story with them and then give them their t-shirts and shake their hand or give them hugs. And that gave him so much energy. He loved it. And he loved being able to make a difference that way. And then a year later, though, he relapsed. And so a year after he was declared that he didn't have cancer, he relapsed. And so that would be in 2008. And but he said, no, we're still continuing on with the softball tournament. So in September, even though he was sick, he went out and he was part of delivering those shirts to those girls. 2009, the same way. 2010, now he's really getting ill. And he's still there, wrapped in a blanket, going out and still sharing these t-shirts. In 2011, June, he passed away. We had to make a decision. 2011, do we have the softball tournament? And we did. It wasn't the same. You see, when he was there was this spirit that everybody adhered to, the spirit that he brought to the fields. And there wasn't the contention that you normally. Yes, there was competition, but you didn't have the contention. There wasn't contention between parents and umpires. And if there were, the rare exceptions, we would talk to them, and if that didn't work, we would escort them off. And we soon developed the reputation that we were only working with the highest quality of coaches, the highest quality of girls, the highest quality of umpires. And so, there you were. And that was the big change. Well, after Nick passed away in 2012, the mood changed. Nick wasn't there. 2013, it got worse. In fact, some of the fans and coaches would even yell at Lori because this happened or that happened, or why don't you take care of this or do that? And in tears, she told me, she says, I'm done. I am not doing this. This is not what Nick wanted to do. We're out. Wow. And so we decided that we were going to end it. However, in spring ball then of 2013, with our girls playing softball in high school, the girls would come up to Lori and said, are we going to have the wacky again this year? When is it going to be? And Lori said, no. And they would be so disappointed. Said, no, we have to. And then the umpires, believe it or not, would come up to her and say, hey, I'm all in on the wacky this year. That's the funnest tournament we do. When's that going to be? And finally, Lori relented. We relented together. And we decided, all right, we're going to have it. But then she had a brilliant idea. And her brilliant idea was she reached out and tapped into the resources that she had in the cancer community. And she identified and got permission to introduce 40 cancer cuties to the 40 teams that were going to compete. So each team adopted a cancer cutie. That changed everything. And so she spent hours making a poster that showed the interests of the cancer cutie, a beautiful picture of it, nicely done, had all of their interests and everything, and each poster was laminated and given to each team. Contact information. These teams would reach out to these youngsters living with cancer, develop a bond with the family. The kids would come out to the actual games. Oh my gosh, and some of them would travel miles to come to there. And the stories that have evolved since, the mood, the environment that's there. We don't have any bad coaches yelling at each other. We don't have families yelling at each other. We don't have fights going on with the umpires. We have discussions and we have competition, and it's a very competitive event. But it's the favorite event of the umpires, the families, the coaches, and of course the girls. And even after the girls are too old to participate in our tournament, this year, for example, we got a call from one team and said, will you please come out? We have something we want to give you. So Lori and I went out late at night to one of their games, and they had made one of these checks, these big checks, and they came and said, we miss Wacky so much that we decided to go out and raise money this year anyway. And they gave her a check, and the girls decided it on their own. It was their decision. And they handed her this check for $100. Not a lot of money, but $100 is $100, and it was raised by these girls, and it was their decision. And so we've watched amazing stories. And there's no way that you could come to this and not leave with a dry eye. When you see these big burly coaches, and their tears are coming down as they're standing in a circle to receive their shirt, and we have their cancer cutie there, and maybe the mom stands up and tells them how much she appreciates him. Or like in this very last one, where the dad stood up and he said, for the last 4 years, he says, those have been the toughest 4 years of my life. He says, I don't think I've had any peace at all. But the 3 days that my son has been able to spend here with you has brought peace to him and peace into my heart. And tears flowed. The coaches' tears flowed. And our daughter Kelsey was there, who was the one that was presenting. And she's kind of a hard rock person, but she said she was trying to think of, she had to follow the father. But imagine the bond that's happening. So persistence. When you believe in something, when something's important to you, don't give up. It's a great lesson that Lori and I learned. We can't let other people, because of their actions, affect what happens to us. And I'm so proud of her to have the courage to push that through. And I look at the impact that's being made now. Enormous gratitude to everybody that's involved in it. But enormous gratitude to the concept of persistence, the firm continuance in a course of action in spite of difficulty or opposition. There's blessings in everything, and always make your learning greater than the experience. Have a wonderful week. I look forward to talking to you next week. Bye-bye.